This morning, the jury for Donald Trump's criminal trial will meet for jury instructions. The former president is accused of falsifying business documents to hide an alleged hush money payment to an adult film star. With more on that, let's bring in our correspondent Joe St. George live for us from New York this morning. Joe, good morning to you. Walk us through why jury instructions matter and what the judge is going to tell them before they actually start deliberating.
You know, it's easy, I think, to overlook jury instructions, perhaps thinking it not being that significant. Surely closing arguments or witness testimony was more significant here. But in a technical case like this, and while this has been a salacious case at times, an adult film actress testified the former President Trump is in court every day. At its heart, this is a technical case, and jury instructions are the final things that the jurors hear before they go back and begin their deliberative process. As a reminder of what we're expecting today, it was a long day yesterday, so judge is not going to kick things off until 10 a.m. this morning. Gave jurors a little rest period. It'll last about an hour, these jury instructions. It's going to be a checklist of what the jurors can and cannot do, what they can and cannot consider, various definitions that they need to remember during the deliberative process, such as what is guilty. Guilty is beyond a reasonable doubt, and judges typically in jury instructions remind jurors that that is the definition. We also expect the judge to reiterate what he said yesterday, and that they are not to consider punishment here. The judge was a bit perturbed when the defense brought up during closing arguments the possibility of putting a former president behind bars. The judge made clear yesterday that punishment would be his jurisdiction, not the jury's jurisdiction. They simply have to determine if Mr. Trump is guilty or not guilty. Remember, there are three options here: guilty, not guilty, but also a hung jury. If one juror disagrees with the other jurors in the room, a hung jury is certainly possible. And yes, because the jury is going to get this case around lunchtime today, before lunchtime today, it's possible that we get a verdict today.
A lot riding on today, of course, Joe. And, you mentioned yesterday was a really long day. We heard closing arguments for hours, really, from both the prosecution and the defense. So in case folks missed it, because as I mentioned, it was hours long, what were some of the big takeaways of what was said?
Well, I think it's worth noting what the jurors endured yesterday. They started around 9:30 and it went well after supper time. Imagine listening to a multi-hour presentation in which you're supposed to sit there in a cold, dark room. And then after lunch, you got to listen to another presentation, an even lengthier presentation. That's what jurors had to endure yesterday. Trump's final argument, Trump's legal team final argument to the jurors: don't believe Michael Cohen. They called him the greatest liar of all time. They also asked them to put aside any personal feelings they may have about Mr. Trump and understand their unique responsibility as jurors. The prosecution, recognizing toward the end of how long the day was, emphasized to the jury that they had to sacrifice brevity in exchange for making sure that they got it right, that they walked the jurors exactly through the evidence that exists against Mr. Trump, at least from the prosecution's standpoint. So it appears as though we're on the precipice of history here, with a moment that could shape the 2024 election. It's certainly possible by the end of the day that Mr. Trump is labeled a convicted felon.
Joe, you have been with us every step of the way. Thank you for your debrief on this, and I'm sure we will be talking again soon.